Critical Role, everyone's favorite group of nerdy voice actors who play Dungeons & Dragons, have just released their very own fantasy tabletop role-playing game. A fantasy tabletop role-playing game that's for furries? Hello everyone, I am Finn. Welcome back to Finn Films. Join me today as we discuss Critical Role's newest fantasy tabletop role-playing game, Dagger Heart. So for those of you who are familiar with my channel, you know that I am a massive Critical Role fan, I am a massive Dungeons & Dragons fan, and just a massive tabletop role-playing game fan in general. Last year, the folks over at Critical Role announced they would be releasing two of their very own unique, newly made tabletop role-playing games, one being Candela Obscura, their kind of investigative, dark, Cthulhu-esque game, and Dagger Heart, the more kind of rules-light, Dungeons & Dragons-esque fantasy game. Today, we're just going to be checking out everything so far that's been released about Dagger Heart, as Dagger Heart's open beta was released, I believe, March 12th. I'll put the link in the description down below if you want to go check it out. So as we said, Dagger Heart is a tabletop role-playing game, rules-light fantasy game. It is very similar, akin to Dungeons & Dragons, though where it differs is really in mainly its mechanics, as well as different flavor aspects of the world. As I mentioned earlier, Dagger Heart is a rules-light game, meaning that it is relatively light on the rules when you compare it to many other tabletop role-playing games. So if you're more in the war strategy fan of tabletop role-playing games, this may be for you. In general, Dagger Heart is supposed to be a character-driven, role-play-driven tabletop role-playing game, which focuses on kind of free-flowing, epic combat, and really just making the most kind of epic story that you can with your friends. Before we get into the mechanics of the game, as while this game does function similarly to Dungeons & Dragons, it is very different at the same time, the most obvious difference being that you roll 2 d12s instead of a d20, but we're going to get to all the mechanic stuff later. Right now, I just want to start off with looking at our character classes. So to start off, we have the Bard, the Druid, the Guardian, which is a very much like a kind of tank, warrior, fighter type class, the Ranger, the Rogue, the Seraph, which is kind of a cleric replacement class, focusing on your relationship with the gods to gain power and to heal your friends. And finally, the Sorcerer, the Warrior, and the Wizard. Just like in Dungeons & Dragons, the Sorcerer and the Wizard are different in that the Wizard learns their magic through studying, while the Sorcerer has their magic innately through their powers. So first off, we have the Ranger. The Ranger has two subclasses, the Wayfinder and the Companion. The Wayfinder is to hunt your prey using deadly force, while the Companion is if you want to form a deep bond with an animal ally. I can almost guarantee you that the Ranger in Dagger Heart is probably going to be better than the Ranger in 5e, especially considering the fact that they included the Animal Companion Ranger. So as we see, the Ranger is part of the Bone and Sage domain. They have a starting evasion score of 10, as well as damage thresholds of minor 4, major 9, and severe 14. This game has a damage kind of threshold system where you take minor, major, or severe injuries. We're going to get into more details of that later, but personally, I really like that. Not only does this kind of damage system help you roleplay better, but it just makes things more simpler when you're trying to do combat. As well, I believe this game also has a stress system, something also that I really like for the same reasons, as it just gives more options for roleplay. For a class item, you get a trophy from your first kill or seemingly broken compass. Class features: Ranger's Focus. Spend hope and make an attack with your weapon. On its success, you temporarily have focus on the target along with doing damage from the attack. While focused, you know precisely what direction they are in. All damage rolls you make against them add 1 plus d6. On a missed attack you make against them, you may end Ranger's Focus to re-roll your duality dice and take the new result. Your duality dice are the 2 d12s that you basically roll all the time as your player. The 2 d12s basically serve as the d20 in Dagger Heart, one of the d12s representing hope, the other d12 representing fear. Essentially, if I was going to make an attack in Dagger Heart, I would roll my 2 d12s, take the total of that number, and then add it with any bonuses that I get. With the 2 d12s, one d12 represents the hope dice, while the other d12 represents the fear dice. If the hope dice is higher than the fear dice, then you are rolling with hope. If the fear dice is higher than the hope dice, then you are rolling with fear. When you roll with fear, basically the Dungeon Master takes note of this, and this affects something in the combat at some point, as opposed to with Hope, you get benefits when you roll with Hope. As we said, the Ranger has two subclasses, the Wayfinder and the Companion. The Wayfinder has several abilities here. The Apex Predator, mark a stress to increase your proficiency by 1 when rolling damage. When you deal damage to an enemy, you can never hit below their minor threshold. I think this is pretty cool, the fact that you can add, that you can use the stress mechanic to increase your abilities. It's very kind of Darkest Dungeon-esque, where you have a negative that you sacrifice to get the positive, and I really like that. Path forward. When you're headed for a place you previously visited, or you carry an object with you that has been there before, you can identify the shortest, most direct path to your destination. Specialization feature. When a creature that is marked by your ranger's focus attacks you, your evasion is increased against attack by a number equal to your agility trait. Mastery feature. When you make an attack roll against an enemy marked by your ranger's focus, you may spend a hope before the roll. On success, you remove 1 fear from the GM's fear pool. Like I said, whenever you're rolling and the fear dice is higher, then the GM gets a fear point in their fear pool, which they can use to spend on monsters' actions. For the companion subclass, they have the foundation feature. You have an animal companion of your choice at GM's discretion. Take the ranger companion sheet whenever you level up a character. Also choose a level up option for your companion. Specialization feature. When you take this specialization, gain a level up to your companion immediately. When you attack an enemy while in melee with your ranger companion, you gain +2 evasion against the attack. That's pretty cool. It actually helps you go in melee as a ranger, which is nice. Mastery feature. When you take the specialization, gain 2 level up options for your companion immediately. Once per long rest, if you and your companion are within range of each other, when the damage from an attack you and your companion would take out of the fight, the other may immediately rush to their side and take that damage instead. I don't want this video to be too long, so we're going to run through the classes relatively quickly. Next up, we have the Druid with the domains of Sage and Arcana and a starting evasion score of 8. They have the class feature Wild Touch, where you can perform harmless subtle effects that involve nature at will, as well as Beast Form, where 1 marks a stress point to transform into a magical creature equal to your level or lower from the available options. The foundation feature for the Warden of the Elements is Elemental Incarnation. Mark a stress to embody an elemental spirit from the list below, lasting for up to 1 hour or until you use this ability again, with fire, earth, water, and air. Very cool. We got some classic Avatar of the Last Airbender element. Specialization feature. Once per short rest while in Elemental Incarnation, you can give the area within close range of you an effect from the list below in accordance with that element. Mastery feature. When you use your Elemental Incarnation, you further embody that spirit and gain the additional benefits below based on the element chosen. Finally, we have the other subclass, the Warden of Renewal, which has the Clarity of Nature feature. Once per long rest, you may create a space of natural serenity around you. After spending a few minutes resting within the space, you can clear stress equal to your instinct trait, distributed as you choose between your allies. As well, they have regeneration. Touch a creature and spend 3 hope to deal 1d4 of their hit points. Again, like fear, hope is a resource, fear being the resource that the GM use, while hope is the resource that the players use. As well, they have their specialization feature. You may use any of your foundation features while in beast form. That's pretty cool. Once per long rest, you may target yourself or an ally close range to clear a number of armor slots equal to your instincts. Finally, you have the Mastery feature. Your animal transformation embodies a healing guardian spirit. While you're in beast form, when an ally within close range marks 2 or more hit points, you can mark a stress to reduce the amount of hit points they mark by 1. Next up, we have the Guardian. The Guardian is kind of the de facto tank in Dagger Heart. They have an ability Unstoppable, which gives you resistance to physical damage, an additional d6 to any attack rolls, and you can spend stress to reroll any single die you've rolled. The Guardian has 2 subclass features, the Stalwart and the Vengeance. Stalwart being kind of the main primary tank subclass. Their foundation feature is when you take this foundation, raise all of your damage thresholds by +2. When you take physical damage, you may spend a hope instead of marking an armor slot to reduce the damage by your armor score. Specialization features. When you take this specialization, raise all of your damage thresholds by +1. When an ally within very close range takes damage, you can mark an armor slot to reduce the damage by your armor score. Mastery feature. When you take this mastery, raise all of your damage by +2. When an ally within close distance has 2 or less HP and takes damage, you can immediately mark a stress to sprint to their side and take the damage instead. Basically, you are the tanky boy who bails out your friends. And then there's the Vengeance Guardian, which is really just to pump more damage. Gain an additional armor slot immediately when you are hit by an enemy in melee range and use at least 1 armor slot to reduce the damage. Immediately do damage to them equal to your armor value. That's kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of like Warrior from Hearthstone. Specialization feature. When an enemy damages an ally within melee range, the next successful attack you make against that enemy has +1 proficiency. Mastery feature, spend a hope to mark an enemy until your next turn. When you make an attack roll against them, you have marked in this way, you can adjust your hope or fear die by +1. Next up, we have the Bard, because I forgot to do them. The Bard is from the Domains of Grace and Codex and has an evasion score of 9. They have the feature Rally. Place a d6 on your character sheet with the lowest number facing up. When anyone in your party rolls a fear, turn the Rally die to increase its value by 1. When you would increase the value above sex, remove the die and describe how you rally the party, and give every character who listens a 1d6 rally. The Bard has 2 subclasses, the Wordsmith and the Troubadour. With the Wordsmith, you get the foundation Heart of a Poet. Once per short rest, when speaking to a person you're trying to impress, persuade, or offend, if you use at least 3 rhyming words, you may add 1d6 to the action roll against them. I really like that. That's fun because it rewards roleplay as well, and Bard is like one of the most like roleplay heavy classes in my opinion. So that's kind of cool that they implement like roleplay incentives into the class itself. As well, they get rousing speech. Once per long rest, you can give a heartfelt, inspiring speech. All allies that can hear you clear stress. Specialization feature. You know your moving words can boost the morale of the group. When you use your skills as a linguist to raise a member of your group up once per session, you can do the following. Allow them to find a mundane object or tool. Help an ally by spending a hope as usual, but roll a d8 instead of a d6 for your advantage die. Give them additional downtime activity during a rest. Mastery feature. The rally die you distribute increases to a d10. In addition, whenever you help an ally, when you narrate the moment as if you were writing the tale of their heroism in a memoir, your advantage die to help them is a d10. That's why we have the Troubadour subclass. Describe a unique instrument you carry and add it to your inventory. You may perform each song once per long rest. When you perform a relaxing song during a moment of calm, you and your allies heal 1 hit point. When you perform an epic song during battle, make the target temporarily vulnerable. When you perform a heartbreaking song at any time, you and any close allies take a hope. Specialization focus. Your rallying song also helps steal the courage of those who listen. Anybody who receives a rally die from you via your rally ability also may gain a hope or clear a stress. Mastery feature, your craft rivals the greats, your skills and creativity unbounded. You may perform each of your foundation songs in additional time per short rest. I really like what they did with the Bard here in the Bard subclasses. I really like how they kind of interlace the roleplay into the character like mechanical elements. I think that's really cool. And I think that if they do that with other classes, that's something that I really like about Dagger Heart. Moving on, we're trucking along here. We have the Rogue with the Domains of Midnight and Grace and an evasion score of 12, very high. They get access to forgery tools or a grappling hook. Class features, hide. When you move into a location where no enemies can see you, you are hidden. As a rogue, when you are hidden, targets also can't see you, even if they move into line of sight. You are no longer hidden after you move or attack. When you leave hidden to make an attack, the roll has advantage. Very cool. Sneak attack. If you have an advantage on an attack roll or an ally is in melee with your target, that's poggers. Always add a d8 to your damage roll. When you use sneak attack, you may also spend a number of hope before the attack roll, and if it is successful, you can also add a number of d8 equal to the number of hope spent. That's crazy. That means you could essentially spend a ton of hope on sneak attack and do a fatty damage. The Rogue has 2 subclasses, the Syndicate and the Nightwalker. First up, we have the Syndicate. When you arrive in a heavily populated town, you know somebody that calls this place home. Give them a name, note how you think they could be useful, and choose one from the list below. They owe me a favor, but they will be hard to find. They're going to ask for something in exchange. They're always in a great deal of trouble. We used to be together. It's a long story. We didn't part on great terms. Then they have their specialization feature. Once per session, you can briefly call forth a shady contact. Immediately choose one of the benefits below and describe the flashback that brought them here to help you in this moment. Before we get into this, I really like what they're doing here. I really like this. I really do. I really like the role play that this encourages. They provide 1 handful of gold, a unique tool, or a mundane object that the situation requires. When making an attack roll, their help lets you shift your hope or fear die by +3. When dealing damage, they snipe from the shadows, adding 2d8 to your damage roll. Mastery feature. You can now use your specialization feature 3 times per day. You can also choose from the following options when you use it. When you mark 1 or more hit points, a contact rushes out to shield you, reducing the hit points marked by 1. When you make a presence roll in conversation, they back you up. Your hope die becomes a d20 for the roll. And then we have the other subclass, the Nightwalker. The Nightwalker has Shadow Stepper. You can move from shadow to shadow. When you step into the shadow cast by another object or person or an area of darkness, mark stress to disappear from where you are and reappear inside of the other shadow within far range. That's pretty cool. That's basically the ability that the Shadow Monks had from 5e, so that's pretty cool. Next up, they have the Dark Cloud. Make a spellcast roll of 15. On a success, create a temporary dark cloud that covers an area within a close distance to you. Anyone in this cloud can't see inside it. This is darkness. Basically, this is darkness. Then you have Slippery. I mean, you may spend hope to immediately slip out of anything that is physically keeping you moving. That's kind of cool. Mastery feature, gain +1 to evasion permanently, and your ability to shadow step now works at a very far range. Cloaked, at any time you can mark stress to make yourself cloaked. While cloaked, you take all the benefits of the hidden condition and automatically lose the vulnerability and restrained conditions if you have them. Cloaked only drops when you make a roll with fear or at your next rest. I'm not gonna lie, Rogue seems really cool so far. Rogue seems like probably my favorite class. I really like what they did with all of the RP elements. Moving on, we have Seraph, the Holy Caster, with domains of Splendor and Valor and an evasion score of 7. The Seraph has the class feature Prayer Die. At the beginning of the session, roll a number of d4 equal to your spellcast trait and store them to the right. You can exhaust them at any time using their value to reduce incoming damage, adding to a roll result, or exchanging them for that many hope you may give to any player. Clear these dice at the end of session. So basically, it's like a personal resource. The Seraph has 2 subclasses, the Winged Sentinel and the Divine Wielder. Wow, you actually get flight with the Winged Sentinel. That's pretty crazy. As you know, flight in tabletop role-playing games is usually pretty powerful, so I'm curious to see how this goes. Foundation feature, you may spend a hope to take flight until your next roll with fear. While flying, do an additional 1d8 damage to any weapon attack you make. You spend an additional hope to pick up and carry another creature that is approximately your size or smaller. Specialization, your supernatural visage strikes awe and fear. You have advantage on presence rolls while in flight. And if you succeed on this presence roll with hope, you may remove a fear from the GM's fear pool instead of taking hope. So basically, they're like Aasimar. They're just basically Aasimar. Mastery feature. When you take this mastery, raise your severe hit point threshold by +4 immediately. While in flight, the additional damage you deal with a weapon attack through your Winged Sentinel Foundation increases to 1d12. Then we have the Divine Wielder subclass, which has the Spirit Weapon. When you have a melee weapon equipped, it can fly from your hands to strike an enemy and return to you. That's kind of cool. Treat it as though it is a weapon with close range. Mark a stress to also apply this attack to another target in range on the same attack roll. Then they have the Sparing Touch. Once per long rest, you can touch a creature and heal 2 hit points or 2 stress. Ooh, stress heal. Very Darkest Dungeon. When you take the specialization, gain in an additional armor slot. Your Sparing Touch can now be used additional times. Mastery feature. When you roll damage for your Spirit Weapon, if any of your damage dice values match, roll an additional damage dice per match. Trucking along here, we have the Sorcerers for the domains Arcana and Midnight, an evasion score of 9. They have Arcane Sense. They can sense the presence of magical people and objects while you're close to them. They have Minor Illusion. We all know what Minor Illusion is. They have Channel Raw Power. Once per long rest, you can place a domain card from your loadout into your vault and choose to either gain hope equal to the level of the card, add magic damage equal to twice the level of the card to a spell you've successfully cast. As we've said, that there's like a deck of abilities that you have in this game, so I'm assuming that that's what they're referring to for the loadout and the vault, but we're going to get to all that mechanic stuff later. Next up, there's 2 subclasses for the Sorcerer, the Primal and the Elemental. For the Primal, your Primal Origin allows you to modify the essence of magic itself. When you cast a spell or use a weapon that deals magical damage, you may mark a stress to do one of the following. Extend its reach by 1 range. Very cool. Add +2 to the action roll result. Reroll any number of damage dice. Hit an additional target within range with the spell. Specialization features. You can enhance the magical practice of others with your essence. When you help an ally on a spellcast roll, the advantage die you roll is 1d8. After you help them make their spellcast roll once per long rest, you can swap the values of their duality dice. That's a lot of shit. I'm not going to lie. A lot of shit there. Some of that went over my head. Mastery feature. You can gather magical energy to enhance your capability. You may become charged. So you basically suck that magic energy up, and then you can spend it no longer charged to either gain +2 proficiency or +2 evasion difficulty for that spell. You are no longer charged after a long rest. Elemental Origin. Your Elemental Origin lets you manipulate and shape a certain kind of element: water, fire, air, lightning, earth. You can channel this element into a unique harmless effect. You may also spend a hope to describe how your control over this element helps a current action you're attempting, and either add +2 to the action roll before making it or +3 to the damage. That's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. I like the RP flavor. I've said this a lot, but that is something that I think I really like about Dagger Heart, is the amount of RP flavor that's baked into all of the classes, which I think is really cool. For too long, I feel like in Dungeons & Dragons, it was very much like, you know, split between you're either role-playing or you're in combat, and sometimes you could role-play in combat, but I really like how they, you know, they combine the class features with the roleplay elements. Specialization, you can call forth your chosen element to protect you from harm. When you are attacked, you may spend a stress to describe how your element is challenged to defend you, and 1d8 to your evasion against the attack. That's pretty cool. I really like this. I really like the element origin. This is really rad. Once per long rest, you can transform into an elemental. Okay. You can choose one of the following features. +4 to your severe threshold, +1 to a character trait of your choice, +1 proficiency, +2 to your armor score, +2 evasions. That's a lot of options, I'm not going to lie. It very much seems like there's a lot of flexibility and options in the playing of this game, a lot of different resources you have to manage and things that you can do. And I like that. It seems like there's a lot of different strategy elements within this game, which is very fun. Okay, getting down to the last two. We have Warrior with the domains of Blade and Bone and an evasion score of 10. Class feature battle strategist. Whenever you're making a roll to physically hinder a creature that isn't a weapon, you can spend a hope to have advantage. On a success, you can choose to deal 1d8 physical damage to the target. Combat training. Ignore burden when equipped weapons, and you may place primary weapons in your secondary weapon slot. Always add additional physical damage equal to the level of the value of your level when you attack. Call of the Slayer. On a roll with hope, you may choose to place a single d6 on this card instead of taking a hope, giving you the resource, right? You can pick up any number of these dice and roll them when making an attack roll or damage roll to add to their value of your total. Discard the ones you use in this way. At the end of the session, clear them from this card. Specialization. You can wield multiple weapons with dangerous ease. Hell yeah, dual wielding. When you make a successful attack roll, you may spend a hope to add one weapon damage die from your secondary weapon to the damage. In addition, once per long rest, when you roll your Slayer dice, you can re-roll any ones, taking the new result. Mastery focus, you become an inspirational ward to all travel with you. You gain a new downtime option called Martial Preparation. Martial Preparation, describe how you instruct and train with your party and gain 1d6 Slayer dice to distribute between you and your allies. Allies can use these dice to enhance their own weapon attacks or damage rolls. Very cool. Call of the Brave. When you roll a roll with fear, you gain hope. Once per long rest before you attempt something incredibly dangerous or face off against a foe who clearly outmatches you, describe what ritual you perform or preparations you make to clear +2 stress and gain 2 hope. Specialization feature, you are vigilant in the face of mounting danger. While you have 2 hit points available or less, your hope die becomes a 1d20. That's pretty cool. Mastery feature, your ending courage is a rallying point for your allies. You can initiate a tag team roll twice per session. When an ally wishes to initiate a tag team roll with you, they only need to spend 2 hope to do so. Tag team rolls are something that I think is pretty cool. Basically, you can do a tag team roll to initiate a special tag team ability with your one of your allies. I saw the Critical Role guys do this in their playtest game that they streamed on Tuesday night, and I'm not gonna lie, this is a fun, really cool kind of role play combined with combat element where you get a combat advantage, but also it's just a fun kind of role play scenario. You get to use your special combo move, your special tag team move with your friends. I really like this. I think this is really cool. I really like the vibe of Dagger Heart so far. Obviously, I'll have to play it to see how it actually plays, but so far I really like the vibe of Dagger Heart. So finally, last but not least, we have the Wizard class, which has the domains of Codex and Splendor and evasion score of 8. They get access to Prestidigitation and Strange Patterns. Choose a number 1 to 12. Anytime you roll that number on a duality dice, gain a hope or clear a stress, you may change this number on a long rest. As well, the Wizard has 2 subclasses, the School of Knowledge and War. For the School of Knowledge, you gain priceless knowledge through great study. When you face off against something of great magical power, you can spend a hope and ask the GM what you know about it. They will tell you something useful or interesting. As an adept, you may mark a stress instead of spending a hope to use an experience on a roll. Experience is kind of like the Wizard's personal class resource. Specialization. When you take the specialization, you may change an existing experience you have and then add +1 to one of your experiences. Once per short rest, you may reduce the recall cost of a domain card in your vault by 1 when recalling it. Mastery feature. When you take this mastery, choose 2 experience and add +1 to each of them. Whenever you wish to use an experience, roll 1d6. On a result of 5 to 6, you do not need to spend a hope. The final subclass, School of War. Foundation feature. You focus your studies on the shaping of magic in both dangerous and powerful ways. Take an extra armor slot immediately. When you make a successful attack roll with fear, you deal an extra 1d6 magic damage. Specialization. You can concentrate to maintain a protective barrier of magic to protect you. While you have at least 2 hope, you can add your spellcast trait to your evasion. Mastery feature. Your extra magic damage from your School of War increases to 1d10. When you make a successful attack roll with hope, you may choose to make it with fear instead. That's kind of cool. Okay, so keeping this train rolling, we're going to talk about the ancestries, aka the mini races of playable characters within Dagger Heart. Something that's very cool about Dagger Heart is it is very much about the player experience and role-playing and having a character, basically whatever you want. Just to note, they really went crazy with the player races here. There is all sorts of player races, starting with the Clank, the Metal Man. Next up, we have the Daemon, or the Demon, kind of like the Tiefling. Then we have the Drakona, or like the Dragonborn. Essentially, the Dwarf, the Elf, the Faerie, which is really cool because the fairies are almost kind of more like bug people, which is really, really rad. As well, there's the Faun, another kind of Fae-like entity class that was very much a homebrew class in Dungeons & Dragons. As well, there is the Firbolg. It's a Firbolg, kind of like Dungeons & Dragons. The Fungril, which is a fungus mushroom person. I freaking love this guy right here, this little mushroom samurai Ronin. This is some dope-ass art, I'm not even going to lie. Then there is the Galapa, which is like the Galapagos turtle, I think, and this is a turtle person, turtle folk. As well, there is the giant. They actually let you play a giant, which I'm pretty sure is basically like a Goliath in this world. In addition, there is the goblin, the halfling, the human. I mean, who the fuck is going to play a human in a world where you can play all of these people? The Katari. Yeah, that's right. You can be a cat girl or a cat boy in Dagger Heart. This is what I'm talking about, guys. This game's for furries. As well, there is the orc, and probably my personal favorite class, the Ribbet. That's right, you can be a fucking frogman, and I'm all about it. Look at this. Look at these dudes. Look at these adorable little frogmen. I love them. And finally, we have our final of the furry classes, the Simiah, aka the monkey ape people. So going into more detail, we have the Clank ancestry. Obviously, this is like an automaton type creature. They get access to purposeful design. Decide who you were created by and for what purpose. When you generate your experiences at character creation, choose one that reflects this purpose and add a +1 to it. Next, there is the demons, the Daemons. Obviously, this is very much kind of tiefling inspired. The features they get is fearless. When you roll with fear, you may choose to mark a stress instead of the GM gaining fear. As well as dread visage, you have advantage on rolls to intimidate other non-Daemon creatures. So again, it seems like tieflings or Daemon and Dragonheart is going to be the best like charisma class, but we'll just have to see. Then there is Drakona, aka the Dragonborn. They get access to a elemental breath. Who would have guessed? Then there is the Dwarf. They get access to increased fortitude. When you should take physical damage, you may spend 3 hope to only take half instead. Then there is the Elf. They get access to Celestial Chance. During a long rest as one of your actions, you may choose to drop into a trance. When you do, roll a number of d8 equal to the stress you have marked, and then clear all stress. If any of these dice have a matching value, also clear all hit points. And then there is the Faerie. Again, I really like the Faerie. I like the fact that they made them much more like bug-like. I think it's really cool. It reminds me a lot of like Hollow Knight, and I like it. Wings. Mark stress to take flight until you next roll with fear. While flying, your evasion score increases by 2. Another flying class. Matt Mercer, what are we doing here? Giving us all these flying classes, man. Luckbender. Once per session, after you and ally closes, make an attack roll. You can mark a stress to allow a reroll of the duality dice. If you do, take the new results. Oh my god, they have luck and wings as a character passive. This character might be getting nerfed. I have a feeling that the Faerie might be getting nerfed. That's pretty strong, bro. Next, there is the Faun. They get Headbutt. Give the GM 1 fear to headbutt an enemy you move into melee with. The target immediately takes a d8 direct physical damage and can't be targeted again by this attack during the fight. And then there is the Firbolg. They have Calm Nature. Whenever you should mark a stress, roll 1d6. On its 6, you take no stress. Then there is the Fungril. I really like this class. I won't even lie to you. It reminds me a lot of Baldur's Gate. Always connected. To speak with other Fungril across distance to access their hive mind of information, make an instinct roll. At character creation, describe which role you must perform to tap into this consciousness. I still can't get over how awesome this fungal samurai character looks. That's so rad. It's such some rad art right there. Next, we have the Turtle Folk, the Galapa, Shell of Protection. The shell on your back always protects you. Add your proficiency to your armor score. Then there is the Giant, Endurance, gain additional hit point slot at character creation. Then they have Reach. Any melee weapon you wield has range increased to very close. This will most likely be the primary tank race, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it seems like they're very much the tank race. Next, we have Goblin. They have Danger Sense. Once per short rest, you may mark a stress to make the GM reroll an attack. If it still hits, you reduce the incoming value by your proficiency. That's pretty good. Then there's Halfling, Little Lucky. At the beginning of each session, give everyone in your party a hope. You may always reroll a 1 on your hope die if you do take the... What is this luck, bro? What is all of this luckiness, man? What is this? Next up, we have Human. Again, why would anyone play Human in a world like Dagger Heart with such awesome races? When you fail a roll that utilizes one of your experiences, you may spend a hope to reroll. You must take the new result. What is all of these rerolls, bro? Next up, we have the Cat Girls and Cat Boys. On any agility rolls, you may mark a stress to reroll your hope die. If you do, take the new result instead. Then we have the Orcs. Sturdy. When you should mark an armor slot, roll a d6. On a 5+, you don't mark the armor slot, but still reduce the incoming damage by your armor score. Seems like Orcs as well will be good as a tank class. Then we have Ribbet. Again, one of my favorite ancestries, one of my favorite races. This is just awesome. Amphibious, you can breathe and move underwater just as easily as on land. Long tongue, you can use your long, powerful tongue to grab onto things close to you. You may also mark stress to unleash it as a finesse close weapon that does d12 damage. That's fucking awesome. I'm pretty sure Liam was playing a frogman in their little one-shot game that they were playing on Tuesday. That's pretty cool. I really want to play a frogman, bro. And finally, the Simiah, which have the nimble feature. Take advantage on agility rolls that involve balancing and climbing and add +1 to your evasion at character creation. Again, I think one of the most interesting things about this game, Dagger Heart, is the mini races in Ancestry. They really went crazy on this. Again, this is a beta test, so I imagine that some of these are going to get changed or possibly nerfed. I mean, the Faerie one, the fact that you get flight and a lucky-like ability, seems fucking busted. I won't even lie to you. Okay, so next up, I want to talk about some of the mechanics of Dagger Heart. Again, Dagger Heart is a rules-light game, and probably the biggest difference between that and Dungeons & Dragons is the fact that this game doesn't really have a turn order list in combat. So now you might be thinking, like, how does that work? And it is a little bit confusing at first, but after watching the Critical Role guys play it, it kind of makes sense. In general, in combat, everyone gets to basically make a move whenever they chime in. Basically, the spotlight goes on you, and you can declare what makes sense in the narrative that you would like your character would do within reason. Obviously, this might be a little harder for, like, maybe newer role players, but I like the actual flexibility that it gives you, as opposed to, like, a game like Dungeons & Dragons, where you just have, you know, your action economy. This kind of gets rid of the idea of action economy. Obviously, your DM isn't going to let you just do everything on your turn. They're going to limit it. But that being said, I really like this idea. As well, if the combat does go long enough, they do have a combat tracker, which helps keep track of, you know, who's done what in what amount of a time frame. But in general, as we said, this is a rules light game, so it really is kind of more on the player to come up with, you know, what kind of move would they do in character that makes sense according with the fiction, and obviously not going overboard and being like, I attack the creature 6 times. So as we mentioned earlier, Dagger Heart is a mechanic called the duality dice. These are basically the main dice that you're going to roll like all of the time in this game. They are 2 different d12s of 2 different colors. One represents hope, while the other represents fear. So as I said earlier in the video, depending on which dice is higher, depends on what you are rolling with. If the hope dice is higher, you are rolling with hope, which gives you a hope point to your resource, as opposed to if you the fear dice is higher, then you are rolling with fear, and the GM gets a fear point to his resource. This game has a lot of kind of minor resources and is kind of like a resource-dependent type game. And while I haven't played the game, I am very curious to see how this ultimately plays out, as hope die is basically the main, like, the main core mechanic and resource that I think basically all character classes use in their class abilities. As I said, hope is a resource that you can spend in your class abilities, as well as to help your allies. You can spend a hope to help an ally, utilize an experience, or activate a hope feature. Going into a little more detail on the combat, we have the hit points and the stress and the damage thresholds. As we said, every class, every character has like 3 damage thresholds for injuries, whether minor, major, or severe. So if an enemy was rolling to hit me, and let's say they rolled an 11 or a 12, then it would do, according to this, a major injury to me, and I would have to mark hit points relative to that injury. This makes tracking damage a little bit easier, as you don't have to worry about a massive damage pool. As well, it also helps you kind of roleplay injuries out a lot better. For example, if you were to take a severe damage injury and it would mark 3 HP off, you could roleplay that severe damage a lot better than in like Dungeons and Dragons, where it really doesn't feel like, at least in a lot of the games that I played, people don't role play their injuries as much. But with having a like hit point system like this, I think that it helps just like accentuate roleplay and roleplay better your character's injuries during combat. Like I said as well before, there is a stress mechanic in this game where you can build up stress. Stress does all sorts of things to your character, like damage you, or does other sorts of complications that the GM can decide, and all things like that. Another thing that I like about Dagger Heart is the consequences of the rolls. As it says here, every time you roll a dice in Dagger Heart, the scene will change in some way. There's no such thing as a roll where nothing happens, because the fiction should constantly be evolving based on the successes and failures of the characters, as we say right here. A failure in Dagger Heart doesn't mean the character doesn't get what they want, it just means that something else happens. Every action that the player takes should yield some kind of outcome, whether it's a positive or a negative outcome or somewhere in between. And personally, I really like that, because man, does it feel bad to try and do an action and you just miss and basically nothing comes of it. At least with something like this, something cool will come of it. So an example that's listed here is if you fail to roll pick a lockpick, it's not that the door doesn't open. On a failure with hope, it might mean that you can hear the rumble of footsteps coming down the hall behind you. The enemies you narrowly escaped before are getting close, and you're going to have to act quickly to find a way through. As well, something that's interesting is death in Dagger Heart. So when you mark your last hit point, you are allowed to make a death move. A death move could be one of the following: embrace death and go out in a blaze of glory. Take one action at the GM discretion, which becomes an automatic critical success, then cross through the veil of death. This is pretty cool because you have the ability to like turn a fight at the cost of your character, obviously, but I really like that instead of just, dying like a bitch on the ground. As well, you can avoid death and face the consequences. You drop unconscious temporarily and work with the GM to describe how the situation gets much worse because of it. Then you roll your fear dice. If its value is equal to or under your level, take a scar. You may not take any action while unconscious. When you have any number of your marked hit points cleared by an ally or on your party's next quest, you will return to consciousness. And finally, risk it all. Roll your duality dice. If hope is higher, you stay on your feet and clear an amount of hit points and or stress equal to the value of hope. Blah, blah, blah. If the dualities are tied, you stay on your feet and clear all hit points. If the player makes a death move that results in their character dying or no longer being able to play, they should work with the GM for next session. Yeah. Personally, I think this seems really cool. As we said, Dagger Heart is very much about kind of like the thematic elements of role-playing. It's all about accentuating and making greater that like role-play thematic experience, and really like all of the rules, all of the combat, the mechanics, the different features of the game, all are kind of trying to serve that purpose to create this like fun, fluid role play, a really immersive environment. And I think that Dagger Heart, while I haven't played it yet, looks like it will be a lot of fun. I think one of my biggest critiques is that I think newer players to role-playing games may have a bit of a problem adapting to this type of game, as it does put a lot of onus on the player in particular. So if you're someone who functions better within a rule set, knowing that, okay, I can take an action and a bonus action this turn, I can move, and those are the only things I can do, as opposed to you can kind of do whatever you want within reason as long as it fits the narrative. It puts a lot more onus on the player and the dungeon master and that collaboration. And so I feel like Dagger Heart might be a game that's better suited to maybe more experienced players or players that just enjoy the roleplay aspect of a tabletop role-playing game a lot more than the mechanical combat aspect. Then again, though, I could be completely wrong. I think if you have a really active imagination and you're willing to kind of dive into a tabletop role-playing game, then Dagger Heart might be the perfect game for you. Again, I've yet to play this game, but everything I've seen so far definitely makes me excited for it. I really like how a lot of the roleplay elements are interweaved into the backgrounds, into the features of the different classes, of the different of the different races, backgrounds that you can take, and everything like that. I think it's really, really cool. Personally, I really look forward to giving this game a shot with some of my friends and just seeing what works and what doesn't work. Because this game is in an open beta playtest, I imagine that a decent amount of things are going to change before it is officially released. But so far, so good for Dagger Heart. I think that the Critical Role team has come up with a really fun, cool alternative for a fantasy game like Dungeons & Dragons, while maintaining a lot of similarities with Dungeons & Dragons, but being more than different enough to justify it being its own unique game. And yes, this was really my initial reaction, kind of initial thoughts of Dagger Heart, and it looks a lot of fun, and I really do look forward to trying it. Honestly, in this day and age, any tabletop game that is an alternative to Dungeons & Dragons, I am down to try. Because I'm kind of tired of Dungeons & Dragons, guys. I won't even lie to you. At the end of the day, though, these are just my thoughts and opinions. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about Dagger Heart so far. And let me know what your favorite ancestry is. You know I'm going to be playing a frogman out here for sure. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, learn something new, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as that is the easiest way to help support the channel and to help make these videos possible. If you did enjoy this video, then why don't you check out one of the videos on screen now. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Hug your mother. Drink your water. Until next time, peace, love, adu.